Let's talk about Formula One. The Indianapolis 500 was officially included as the third round of the 1950 Formula One season. Although it's one of the most famous racing events in the USA, in 1950 it didn't attract any European driver or team. Nino Farina had planned to enter, but his car didn't arrive. The race was also part of the 1950 AAA National Championship trial and was as such run to AAA and USAC regulations instead of the European F1 rules. As the name implies, it was held at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval Circuit, nicknamed the Brickyard. That race in particular was also notable for its Hollywood presence, as Clark Gable and Barbara Stanwyck were at the track to film scenes for their upcoming movie To Please a Lady. It was also held on the 30th of May, which was a Tuesday, rather than the usual F1 Sunday we're all used to nowadays. As it was pretty much a standalone event, they were all new cars, like the Curtiss Craft 1000, 2000 and 3000 models, the Date Tufanelli Terrico, the Maserati 8CTF and the Alfa Romeo 8C308, which provided the only European presence on the grid, the Watson Indy Roadster, the Olsen Special and the Rounds Rocket Special, which was the first ever mid-engined Indianapolis car. Firestone provided the tyres for all the teams, as well as Offenhauser provided all the engines for them. So here's the list of all 74 entries. As you can see, everyone was American. I've put question marks where I couldn't find the exact model of the car they used. Qualifying was held over 4 laps and over 4 days. Driver got their starting position based on the day on which the time was posted, then by order of the fastest time. If a driver didn't go out on the first day, their first run of the first day was considered. So, positions from 1st to 11th were decided on the first run, 12th to 15th on the second, 16th to 21st on the third, and 22nd on the 32nd on the fourth. Last place, 33rd, was decided by a bumping procedure. Once the 33rd driver had qualified, non-qualifiers could aim to bump the slowest driver in the field by beating their time, and at the end of the final day the driver in 33rd place would qualify for the event, but would start at the back even if the time he had set was faster than the drivers ahead of him. Al Cole had an accident during qualifying, meaning that he was out. 33 drivers managed to qualify on 74 entries. Faulkner got the pole ahead of Agabashian, Rose, Connor and Parsons in P5. The left column of times are the hot laps, while the right column stands for the 4 qualifying times added up together. The starting procedure was very different from the European races as well. Instead of a standing start, the drivers had to complete a full lap behind the pace car and then get a rolling start. At the start, Maury Rose got away very well and climbed from 3rd to 1st and would keep the lead up until lap 10, when Johnny Parsons passed him. On the same lap, Duke Dinsmore retired for an oil leak. A couple of retirements followed, first Dick Rathman on lap 25 for stalling the car, and then Tony Bettenhausen on lap 30 for a broken wheel bearing. 3 laps later, Rose got back in the lead, but would last only 1 lap, as Parsons quickly got back into P1. On lap 42, Hanks retired for rising oil pressure. 10 laps later, Jackson DNF'd with a broken compressor, and on lap 64, another oil leak forced Agabashian out. On lap 71, Banks swapped with Agabashian, and on lap 82, Chitwood did the same with Bettenhausen. Meanwhile at the front, on lap 105, Rose got back in the lead. On the same lap, Leverett swapped drive with Cantrell. 3 laps later, another retirement for oil pressure. This time it was Leverett who DNF'd. On lap 110, Bill Holland was in the lead of the race. In the following 2 laps, Schindler would retire for transmission problems, and Banks also went out with a broken oil pipe. On lap 118, Parsons got back in the lead. On lap 123, Holmes spun off into retirement, and on lap 131, the same fate would happen to McGrath. Finally, on lap 138, the race was red flagged, courtesy of very heavy rain, and so Parsons won in front of Holland and Rose, rounding up the podium. A rumour circulated that Parsons' team discovered an irreparable crack in the engine block before the race. This led Parsons to set his sights on leading as many laps as possible before his engine would fail, but the red flag saved his lead and guaranteed him the win. This story, however, proved to be an urban myth. Johnny Parsons' win with fastest lap, which was a 1 minute 09.77, saw him gaining 9 points, enough to move tied in the lead of the World Championship with Farina and Fangio. He also became the first ever American driver to win a Formula One World Championship race, and got kissed by Barbara Stanwyck in the ending celebrations. Parsons is also one of only 3 drivers to have won on their World Championship debut. As for the race, it's the first red flag race in F1 history. So as the championship becomes a 3-way tie in the front, join me next week as we come back in Europe and look at the 1950 Swiss Grand Prix. Alright, take care and have a good day everyone. Goodbye.